Greetings, YouTube. Yesterday I was doing some cleaning, a little organization, and I stumbled upon some pictures that I don't even remember how or when I got them. They've been around for a while, I suppose. And they were of my grandparents, all four of them. And I thought I would scan them and present them to the interwebs as an introduction to the people in my life that were incredibly important to me when I was a child. My grandparents all lived in Shamokin, Pennsylvania, um, which is a small coal mining town. It's built on 7 hills. At one time, it had 7 collieries, 7 functioning coal mines. I believe one of them may still be functioning. I'm not positive. Um, it's a little podunk town in the middle of nowhere. I think it has a population of 3,000 people total. It's not big. There are more churches and bars in that town than I have ever encountered. It is not quite true, but it looks like that there. It feels like there's one on every single street corner, either a bar or a church. Uh, it's quite impressive. Um, both of my parents were born and raised in the town, and in fact, I could quite easily walk from one of my grandparents' homes to the other home without any difficulty whatsoever. And I had some incredibly fond memories of that place, and I enjoyed visiting my grandparents whenever I had the opportunity, even though I live in New England. And we got very good at driving from New Hampshire to Pennsylvania in the fastest route available. I think we could do it in like 7 hours. We got very good at that. We would make the trip when I was young 3 or 4 times a year, and as I got older, of course, less and less, until eventually I just stopped going. And I'm actually related to a whole lot of people in that town. I believe that of the town, there's probably some kind of distant, tangible connection to about a third of the people there on some level. Um, Folks have been living in that town for generations, so there's a lot of intermarriages in that place. So the first picture I'm going to show you is of my mother's parents, Mary and George. It was taken in Houston, Texas, on their honeymoon in 1939. So cue the picture. Now you notice in that picture my grandfather doesn't have a particularly large amount of hair. He has the classic monk's ring of hair on his head. That's as much hair as my grandfather had when he was 19 years old. And that's the amount of hair he had when he died. I think he was 84 when he passed away at an elderly home. And so, I was doomed from the very beginning. All right, the second picture I'm going to show you is of my father's father. His name was Lester, and he, in this particular picture, is 16 years old. I don't remember what he was doing at that time. I think he might have just been doing some general labor. He might have been doing logging. I'm not positive. I know he worked in the coal mines occasionally. He did not work there full time. And he went on to learn refrigeration, ammonia refrigeration, before they used Freon and the conventional stuff that we have today. He was a machinist mate during World War II on board a troop carrier, and he was in Nagasaki 6 weeks after they dropped the bomb. So, there's a lot of connection to the World War to both the World War II and in general the military in my family. He was one of the first connections I ever remember learning about was his behavior in his action in the war, and we have a number of souvenirs that he brought back with him. In fact, he made a few trinkets. In fact, he made a silver ring out of a silver dollar that I have in my collection. In fact, you can still look at the inside, and it says the year it was made, because he took the coin and he punched a hole through it, and then he turned it around so that the printing, the date and such, was on the inside. It's quite clever. And so now we're going to show you his picture. And the last picture I'm going to show you is of my grandmother Hilda, Hilda. Not a common name. You don't hear it a lot in the modern world. She was my father's mother. And even though I hate to say it, I'm going to. She was my favorite grandparent. She was my favorite human being in the world. And on some level, she still is. She wasn't perfect, but she was the absolute quintessential perfect relationship in my childhood. She was an anchor to the world in a way that no one else ever was, and I don't think anyone else ever will be. She helped keep me sane. She was an organizer. She was obsessive compulsive. She was mildly OCD, which is probably where I got some of my traits. She organized, and she cleaned, and she helped people do things. She was in charge of a green stamp store, and she ran the household for my grandfather, who was functionally illiterate. Both of my grandfathers were functionally illiterate. My grandfather George, the one I mentioned with the little bit of hair he had, he was a drummer, and he worked in a factory, but he pretty much couldn't read. And my grandfather Lester also pretty much couldn't read. Hilda took care of everything, and when Hilda was finally gone, my grandfather Lester couldn't live without her. He committed suicide. I think he was 86 when he died, because he just didn't want to keep going without his wife. And I can understand that. Hilda was an incredibly special woman. She was part of the church choir, and she helped run the daycare they would put all the kids in during the services, and she ran the Rose Club for the town. She had a backyard that was only slightly larger than the room I'm in right now, and she had 7 types of roses in that backyard. I would love to see if the people who live there now have kept that up, because they were beautiful. She was beautiful. And I have her picture on my wall in the kitchen. And in many ways, she is, and will always be, a manifestation of the divine to me. So I will part with my favorite person in all the world, Hilda. Thank you for watching.